Our guest today, former coach of mine. My first year of pro ball in 2016. He was one of our coaches. Played professional baseball for 7 years. He's a professional scout, the baseball motivator, the softball motivator. Has his own line of music, CJ Beatty Music. To our guest today, CJ Beatty. How
Thanks
are
for
you?
joining us, man.
Hey, you live for moments like this, man. This is it. I remember when I came out my mom, I was like, I'm podcast ready. You know what I'm saying?
Little background about CJ. He's from Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Played college ball at North Carolina A&T State University and was drafted by the St. Louis Cardinals in 2009 in the 26th round. It's going to kind of lead me into my first question, CJ. I just kind of want to talk about your history. If baseball was always a love of your life, and if that's kind of, you knew you wanted to stay within baseball, and that's how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, it was, man. It was one of those deals that my parents positioned me to be a baseball player. You know, I grew up as a very, very young boy wanting to play football, and my mom wasn't having it. She was like, no, you're not going to play football. You're not going to get broken up, break your arm and all that stuff, all that craziness. So my dad he did what he was supposed to do, and he listened to his wife to keep the home happy, and he directed me towards baseball. And just so happened, I was the best t-ball player in the country. It really hit me like around the age of 8 and 9. That's when it started. Like that process started for me, where I started to believe, like, man, maybe what these people are saying is true. I mean, you always play for fun, but you don't know anything about how far you can go with the sport. But about 8 or 9, people started saying, man, he's got the goods. He could go. About 9 years old is when I started to believe that. I'm like, yo,
Right.
man, I just want to go to Duke, man, because Coach K's there. Not even
Yeah.
I didn't even know their baseball coach. But
Right.
that's how the journey kind of started for me in baseball.
A ton of these young kids, man, that's great advice, because they all have dreams when they're young of being a pro baseball player, pro football player, and their journey kind of defines them through the years. And you know, random motivations, like you said, like Coach K's at Duke, might push you a little bit just because it's like, hey, that's awesome if I were to be able to go there.
It's always those little things.
I got a question for you. So tell us a little bit about like what you got going on now, what you do now. You know, you got an awesome logo on your hat right now, your shirt, TBM, TSM. I know Mick mentioned it, but tell us what it is, what you do, you know, where you go. Just fill us in a little bit.
When I was playing ball in Australia for the Brisbane Bandits, it was just one of those times where I was in independent ball, trying to get back to affiliated ball. It was 2012, and I was on FaceTime with my mother. Everybody was asleep in Australia, and I was trying to figure out like what my next move was going to be. And she was just like, well, what else are you good at? I told my mother, I said, Mom, that's kind of one of the dumbest questions ever, because baseball has been my life.
Yeah.
She's like, nah, but seriously, think about what else are you good at? That's where you need to start. I remember in the off seasons, I would go speak for free at elementary schools, just doing what I do as a professional athlete. And so I told my mother, I said, well, Mom, I guess I could speak. That can be it, but surely you can't make a living speaking. But my mother said one thing that really sparked it. She said, CJ, we paid this speaker, $5,000 to come speak for a 2-day workshop. And I said, whoa. Somebody's getting $5,000 to come talk to you people for 2 days? I said, well, I guess that's where I'm going to be at then. When I get done with baseball, if they paying people to be good people,
Yeah.
then I guess that's the industry I want to be in. So when she said that, because I knew right away, I said, if anything excites me or gives me such a feeling of an accomplishment or a feeling of purpose, is when I'm on stage motivating the youth, motivating people in general. I said, man, when I leave events, I'm like, yo, I'm pumped up. They're pumped up. I feel like that is life. I get that feeling of like that purposeful feeling. So I said, dang, if I can get paid for that, then that's what I want to do. I want to be a motivational speaker. When I touched down back in the United States, I launched my company in 2013, Motivational Nuggets. April 2013 to be exact. So right now, you already do the math. We've been up. I've been a motivational speaker for 7 years this month. And back then, I didn't know where to start. iPad, $1 and a dream, trying to get back to the affiliated ball and put up weekly motivational videos on YouTube. That was me. Everybody else wanted to go out and pro ball. When I played, hey, Mick, when I played with the Washington Wild Things, that was back in 2013. Yep, 2013. Everybody's like, yo, man, we're going out. I was like, nah, bro, I got to go home. I got a video I got to upload. I'm working on my next video for next week. Everybody sleep on the bus trips. That became my office. That's kind of how it all started. But when it came to the baseball motivator brand, the softball motivator brand, that started because one of my mentors, Tony Gaskins, he's a big-time relationship social media influencer. And he said, CJ, you need to find your own lane within the industry. What will somebody pay you $10,000 to talk about? I said, what? He gave me that question and got up and went to the restroom. So I'm over here swimming in my thoughts. When he came back, I was just like, well, I mean, this is kind of easy. I don't need time to think about it because it's like life without baseball. I don't know what I am. He said, okay, all right, well, there you go. So I'm thinking that was it. I answered your question. Oh, buddy was like, okay, so what in baseball? Okay, now you're getting crazy. Now you ask me. I said, well, something to do with the mental toughness side of baseball, like the mental side, because that's what I like. That's what I missed as a player. He said, perfect. Now you're a qualified person within the industry talking about something key. And he said, there it is. You're the guy that people come to for baseball motivation. So when I left there, he said, now you just need to come up with a name for your brand. So I was like, okay, all right. I'm sitting there driving back, and I'm like, yo, what am I going to call myself? I'm like, the baseball guru. I said, no, that's cheesy. God dang, that's bad. And then that's where I came look, if I'm motivating people in baseball, I want to be the baseball motivator, like somebody that just goes around just motivating people that they can do it in their sport. And it clicked, the baseball motivator, TBM. And then people say, well, how did you get your hats like this? Because this is my second logo, and I love it. But the reason why I did them so big on the hat is because I was inspired by Floyd Mayweather.
Oh, no way.
I was just like, I want something real big on a hat that people can see across the street, that forces them to walk across the street and ask me, what in the world is on your hat?
I think it's great just for people to hear because you stayed within the sport you loved, that you knew you were best at, found something else that you were really good at, and made them work together. And it shows you don't have to be done once the playing career is over. You can find a way to stay in the sport if you truly love it, because that's what myself and my brother, we're doing the same thing right now. Is I knew the best thing I'm at in this world is baseball, something related in baseball. So we're finding a way to stay within it, similar to you and any young listeners out there. If you love this sport, you can stay within this sport. It's not just, if you don't make it all the way, you got to be done and work your 9 to 5. Find a way to grind it out and find a way to get involved. If it's coaching, if it's scouting, if it's a niche that you're good at, similar to that. So no, I think that's awesome for the viewers to hear.
Yeah, thank you.
Next question just can be any general advice or just specific about, because the whole world's going through this pandemic, but just any advice for the youth listeners out there, young kids that are tuning in and just are the baseball junkies that are going to be molding up, growing up through here.
Yeah, my advice through this pandemic is for all the athletes to be sharper mentally when this thing is over. So many people and athletes go into this thing with the high hopes of, I'm going to work my butt off. And 80 to 90% of them working their butt off during this break is physical and not mental. I didn't understand mental toughness until I was 23. I knew about it, but I didn't understand it. I didn't understand its relevance, how to apply it and things. I just really done what the coaches told me to do. So it's like, I get the kids and the parents are pushing, and coaches are pushing and influencers are pushing, hey man, you can do the 1-hop drill. But if nobody really mentally broke down when to work through the ball or what hop to read, if you're not understanding that, then are we really getting this much better or are we really getting this much better? But so the whole point of me saying that is players, athletes, parents, coaches, talk to them about situational hitting. Talk to them about the mental. Talk to them about when you're in this defensive situation. Give them something they got to fill out on a paper. Draw a diagram on a board. Feed their minds. Yeah,
no, absolutely. And that's our first guest, actually, Andy Young. He was on our team that year in 2016 when we won it. And that's one thing he really touched on. He was like, right now, I know I can stay physically ready, but he was saying the mental side of the game is where you're going to grow, where you got to be, especially right now where players don't know when they're going to get back on the field, is you got to be as strong up here as anything.
Yep.
Well, CJ, we appreciate you hopping on, man. Was happy to have you here.